what's like the plan? Like, okay, I'm going to pour identity into my kids. What are you doing for your kids practically to like begin to build that foundation of identity?
Yeah, I think, okay, so identity is, I think there's 5 keys. It's great. I just taught this last night. I think
Come
there's
on.
5 keys to identity, to instilling identity in our kids. The first one is our kids are asking questions.
Mm,
You see it in the garden. The devil's asking questions as well. You know, the devil says, did God really say you can't eat from any tree in the garden? So our kids are being asked questions and they're asking them. And so um, the first one they're asking is, am I good enough? Usually.
mm.
And so who's going to show me that I'm good enough? And if you just pay attention to this when they're,
That's great.
a teenager, I know we're talking 1 to 5, but teenagers, like if they don't feel good enough for their parents, but they feel good enough for their friends and their friends accept them as they are and love them as they are, that friend is not just a friend. Now they are the source of identity in our
Yeah.
children's lives. And we're no longer the source because our kids, the way we raise them or discipline them, they do not feel like they're good enough. And so I think in all of our stuff, that's what we want to make sure we're kind of answering is like, you're actually good enough for me. Like when
Mm,
you make a poor choice, I can separate out the choice, the behavior from who you actually are. Like an example with my kids, um, I think it comes down to a lot of times at that age, tone of voice.
mm.
So, my little guy will, like today. All right, it's early. He gets up early. He's tired. He's sick, so he's a little bit older than this, but this works with all of them.
I love it.
And he's totally melting down. And he spit in my face. Like we were wrestling a little bit, and he spits in my face. And I said, "Hey, buddy, we don't spit in people's faces. And I want you to go get a rag and wipe it up. Just clean my face. I want you to, because I want them to clean up their mess. Hey, I'll let you make a mess, but you also get to clean it up so you learn
Yeah.
making a mess is not enjoyable. And I'm not going to do it for you. I'll help you if you need it. But so I said, hey, go grab a rag. You can wipe the spit off my face. Like, Dad, I can't see it. I'm like, all right, cool. Hey, and he starts melting down. Like, obviously, you haven't had enough sleep. So a lot of times that's a factor with little kids. They haven't had enough sleep or they're hungry. And so we have to keep that in mind. And when that thing turns on in them, we have to crank up our gentleness and kindness. And so he's
Mm,
totally melting down. It's 7 a.m. And I'm like, hey, buddy, do you want to clean it up or do you want me to clean it up for you? If I clean it up for you, I'm going to have you go to the reset chair. So I call it the reset chair. Danny calls it the no fun chair. I
yeah.
call it the reset chair because no fun chair kind of has felt to a lot of parents like I'm going to separate my kids from me, and when they behave, then I will come back to them. And
Yeah.
they're like, I don't know theologically how I feel. So I call it the reset chair now
It's
because it's
great.
designed to give you a spot to reset emotionally, right?
Yeah. I
And
love
so
that.
he's melting down. I go, buddy, do you need a little bit of time to reset? Do you want to walk there? Do you want me to carry you? So I'm giving him options. I'm giving him choices. If he doesn't make the choice, I'll make it for him. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to carry you. I take him over. I said, here, take a little bit of time and reset. When you're ready to talk to me like this, in a voice like this, I think that's another key. I want to provide to my children the tone of voice that I want from them. It's the gospel, I think. Jesus
Yeah.
is like, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And then he comes and provides to us. He loves us with all his heart, soul, mind, and strength, and loves us as he loves himself. And he provides to us what he requires from us. That's in some of my gospel explanation, I would say that's deep in there. And so I want to provide to them what I want from them. So I'm like, hey, buddy, as soon as you are ready to talk like this, come on out. And then I said, hey, so I'm just like right now, there's like 5 or 6 tools in here that help with this age.
I love it.
And then a couple minutes later, I'm like, hey, buddy, do you think you can calm down on your own or do you need me to hold you? And he's like, I want mommy. I want mommy. I'm like, okay, I'll get mommy for you. And I go to Lauren. I'm like, I think he just needs help resetting. Like he's pretty maxed out and he doesn't want me there. And so I'm like, I'll request backup any day of the week. I don't
Yeah.
have to be the hero. I don't have to be the one. I'm like, hey, I'll go get backup. Lauren can come. She helps him reset. I think holding them is super important. Physical touch helps their neurological system like settle down and
Decompressed.
calm
Yeah.
down. Yeah. And so she gets in there and holds him. He calms down. And then we have a talk. I'm like, hey, buddy, we don't spit in people's faces. It's very disrespectful. We're not going to do that. There was spit on my face. I cleaned it up. And then he's totally fine. And we go on. But I would say those are some practical stuff of like, provide the tone of voice you want from them. I also wouldn't engage them until they have got the tone of voice that you're using. Here's what happens a lot of times. I think here's a mistake parents make is they allow the child's tone of voice to determine their tone of voice.
Yeah.
And so the kid is melting down and then they match the tone of voice of their kids. And what happens there is I've now given control of me over to my kid. So as soon as you change, I'll change. As soon as you talk kind, I'll talk kind. That we don't talk like that in this house. You change your voice. Don't you talk to me like that. I'm like, well, I'm talking to you the same way, right?
Yeah.
So now I've allowed your behavior and tone to decide mine. So I've given you control of me. I'm no longer in self-control. And what that does, I believe that's what one of the things that causes a lot of the anxiety we see in kids is kids know they're not supposed to be in control of their parents, but too many parents have put them in control of them. And they know I'm running the home and I shouldn't be. And so I would say those are all practical stuff. Don't engage them until they match your tone. Wait for them to calm down. Help them if they need it. Hold them if they need it. Give them a space to reset. My little guy will put a blanket on his head. And I'm like, you know what? I have to feel it out with God. Like, is that shame or is he trying to really reset? Because kids who are emotionally overloaded, sometimes they need a space to just like get away. And so I'm like, if it's shame, then I'll pay really close attention and I'll get in there and reaffirm that I love him so much. I'll do that even more than if it's just like, oh, you're just really trying to reset here and calm down. But give him a place to reset.
I love it.
And have boundaries. Like, hey, you don't get to spit in people's faces. Little kids are learning that. I think too, 1 to 5, it's really important. We have to keep in mind 1-year-olds are all they've known their whole entire life is if I have a need, I scream and cry and people meet my need, whether it's a poopy diaper, whether it's tired, whether it's afraid, whether it's hungry, all of it. I just cry and you meet my needs. And that's how I get my needs met. So 1 to 5 is that journey where hopefully if their development is not arrested, hopefully that's where we're training them. Hey, you don't yell and scream and cry, you talk. And I'm teaching you how to do that. I'm not expecting you to know how, I'm training you how. And so I will help you learn how to actually use words to get your needs met rather than melting down and screaming and crying and